This is the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. I'm Eric Balkman from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour and the FFPC. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Balkman and the FFPC on Twitter at FFPC. Before we get into the show, I want to remind everyone that you can get a listeners-only 10% discount to RotoViz by using the code RVRadio2022. That's RVRADIO2022. Your subscription gives you unlimited access to all of the RotoViz content and tools, and it supports the podcast channel. Now, without further ado, here's the latest edition of the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. Hi, hello, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on the latest edition of the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. I am your host, Eric Balkman. You know me from the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, the Fantasy Football Players Championship at myffpc.com, and of course, the Better Sports Network's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. Connect with me on the X at Eric Balkman. That's EricBalkman. We have, you can also connect with the FFPC on FFPC, or excuse me, on X at FFPC. The FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball and Superflex Best Ball tournaments are loaded up here. We got 23 days until they close, unless those tournaments fill up before then, in which case they will be shut down. This is all about having no sense of where these rookies are going to go. Some of the first free agency wave, you didn't know where some of these players are going. So this is all about having some fun, drafting some teams for a $40,000 or a $10,000 grand prize, which you can do right now in the Never Too Early tournaments at myffpc.com. April 24th is when those tournaments will close. Drafts available with a 30-second, 60-second, 2-hour, or 6-hour clock. If you are also at myffpc.com, check out the Dynasty Orphans we have available. We have just posted the final 300 orphan teams for the 2025 FFPC season. Those entry fees normally range from $77 all the way up to $5,000. However, a lot of those teams have already been discounted for 2025. As a reminder, we've been doing this Dynasty thing for 15 years with the FFPC, and over 1,800 leagues we have had, and none have ever folded. So check that out at myffpc.com, as well as the Big Gorilla Tournament, which is going on right now. It is formerly the Fantasy Pros Championship. It is now the Big Gorilla Tournament. $1 million grand prize, a $50 discount for every third team you register. Drafts already off and running with live and slow drafts at the moment right now. Early Rampage tournament is off and running. The 7 Bananas promo is going off right now. We've already had one person cash in on a free main event team for getting the 7 pick 3 times in a row. We had a bunch of people, pun intended, with the Bananas, cash in a free best ball tournament, $125 entry, by getting the 7 pick 2 times in a row. Check that out at myffpc.com. Remember, if you register now, you're essentially getting in 2 tournaments for one. You're getting in the Big Gorilla, and you're also getting in the Early Rampage tournament. So you can win $1 million and a $10,000 grand prize if you're able to win both. myffpc.com is where to go for that. Remember to like this video, subscribe to this video, comment or subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, share this video with your friends, share with your enemies, and hit the notification bell so every time we go live, you will be made aware and you can tune into the FFPC channel. More on what's coming up this week later on in this program tonight. I am joined tonight by a guy making his return to the FFPC airwaves, a guy who is no stranger to both redraft and dynasty leagues, a guy who's had a lot of success in FFPC Dynasty Leagues over the year, to the point where he has won 15 Dynasty League titles to his name. Please welcome in the pride of Canada, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jay Yutronkie. Jay, so good to have you aboard tonight. Happy Tuesday. Thanks for hopping aboard.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Great to be here. It's interesting you talking about the orphans. I was actually thinking of my portfolio, and I think I got 15 teams or something like that, and I believe 9 of them are orphans.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I kind of take the broken child, the forgotten one, and like to kind of build it up and put my name on it. And something I just really enjoy doing. So I thought that was fascinating when I thought about it.
You know, I don't necessarily think it's a point of pride, Jay, but I did pick up a Dynasty Orphan team 2 years ago. It was a private team, a private, league that we're that I'm in with several FFPC people actually, or FFPC players, I should say. And I did it because I knew a lot of the people in the league, and I knew the team wasn't in great shape. But I'm like, what the heck? Let's try to turn this around. The first year I was in it, I think I just missed the playoffs, which is fine. That's a good performance. This past year, won the whole thing in the second year, which was awesome. Nice. And I think there is something to be said for that. It's part of the reason we see a lot of the same people, yourself included, picking up all these orphans, because if you can, I think there's a certain egotistical aspect in our fantasy football mindset that we think we can turn these around. And I didn't think I could this fast, but I did. And now I'm thinking like, oh man, I'm God's gift to fantasy, right? Because I turned it around that fast. And like, I know that's not the case, but there is a certain amount of like feeling that you have when you're able to turn it around and win a title and bring home the treasure with another man's trash.
No, absolutely. You have flexibility. You have the choice. Okay, do I want to kind of invest? Do I think this team is close enough? Okay, let's make a few minor trades. Do you want to blow it up and rebuild? I'm just build through the draft. Like, you have so many options, and there's a discount. You're not paying full price, right? So there's financial incentive to say, okay, I've only spent $250 on a $750 team. I can take some chances here. This is not like I have to perfect the draft. Like, you can have fun with it. So I always like that element, that it I don't know, it forces me to do things I normally wouldn't do if I think I did a team from scratch in a startup.
No, it's totally different. It's totally different because if you are doing it from scratch, right? If you are doing it as the team that you drafted, you screw that up, that's on you.
Exactly.
You don't win with somebody else's offered. Hey, man, I bought into the mess. This isn't on me. Right. This is on the guy before.
Yeah, exactly.
So there is. It's sort of like that episode of Friends when Chandler was telling Rachel that she'll never get the job she wants because she doesn't quit her the job that the call, being a waitress or whatever. Like, because you don't have the fear. Well, man, like if you pick up an orphan, there's no fear. But if you do a dynasty startup, man, you got the fear in you. Because if you screw it up, it's on you.
Exactly. There's an emotional attachment to the startup. You remember which picks worked, which ones didn't. But the orphan, I'm just like this one I picked up. I'm just swinging deals. I'm like, I have no emotional attachment. I've been very active. I'm like trying to get to know the league mates. I have Brian Thomas Jr. That's my only untouchable. Everyone else is fair game. So
it's not unlike like when a new NFL owner takes over a team or hires a new GM where you're just like, okay, I'm putting my stamp on this team.
That's right.
I'm bringing in all the guys I want. I'm getting rid of all the guys that I don't care for or I have no attachment to. And now is when we start winning. So, and I think that's a good starting off point tonight as we tell everybody that on tonight's show on the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, the April edition for 2025, we're going to be talking about a lot of players, a lot of strategy tonight, including but not limited to Cam Ward, Christian McCaffrey, Drake London, and Stephon Diggs. To kick things off, Jay, I know that you play in the FFPC in a variety of dynasty formats. You do the regular standard meat and potatoes, classic original dynasty. You do the Superflex dynasty formats, and you also do the RotoViz Triflex dynasty formats. Of those three, do you have a favorite? Do you just have to play all three because there's something you enjoy about each one? Is there an aspect that stands out to you that really tugs at your heartstrings? Like, man, I got to keep going with this format because it's my favorite.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean to, like, I like them all, and my portfolio has them all. But if I had to choose, I'm going to go with the RotoViz just because I think it has the greatest balance. I have a soft spot for those depth wide receivers, those wide receiver 4s and 5s. And if you're in a super flex, start 2 wide receiver with a flex. You're not going to be starting, Rashad Bateman or Jacoby Myers or Christian Kirk, maybe on a bye week. But a RotoViz, you can kind of squeeze those guys into your lineup on a regular basis. So it also rewards the teams that have greater depth. Because I know some teams, they're like, wow, stellar. They're sitting on their bench like wide receivers, especially if you like a wide receiver build in the Superflex. You kind of get penalized for that. But RotoViz, throw him in there, man. You can, T. Higgins, he's not sitting on your bench, right? He's there with, your CeeDee Lamb and Malik Neighbors, and you could just ride with them all. So I think I like that aspect. I think it has the greatest balance. And the startup is so fascinating because you have your guys that like quarterbacks. You got your Lamar Jacksons and your Josh Allens are going to go early, but Jamar Chase enters the question a lot sooner, right? Yeah. Or even the running backs like a Bijan is going to come into play probably late round 1, early round 2. So it just creates so many interesting dynamics for trading. So I really like that. And it gives you a little break from having to play the defense streamer of the week and the kicker matchup of the week. So it's kind of nice when you're doing waivers too.
I think one of the cool things about it, and I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, this is it. This is why everybody loves it. But I do think that there's a lot of people out there who play in dynasty leagues, even in the FFPC, the single quarterback leagues, and they know the quarterback is not accentuated the way it probably should be, the way that it is in the NFL, right? And then you have the Superflex leagues, right, that maybe overvalues the quarterback, where there's too much emphasis on the quarterback. And, we had Papa Bear's porridge was too hot, Mama Bear's porridge was too cold. And then the Goldilocks RotoViz Triflex leagues come in, and it's just right? Good balance with the quarterbacks, good balance with the other positions, no kickers and no defenses. So it is strictly just quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, where you're trying to focus it on. I know it's not for everybody, but I know ever since we introduced that, and shout out to, I think, Curtis Patrick, who is not in the industry anymore, which I just found out about a few days ago. Yeah. He'd helped develop that. I think Ryan McDowell from Dynasty League Football had a lot to say about that as well. But I think that has been a huge hit with FFPC players. I know a lot of people love playing that format, and it's one of those things where I'm always nervous about introducing stuff that I think is too complicated or maybe harder to understand for the casual player, which was kind of my misgiving on this. I was dead wrong, because I should say a lot of people who have played this format have not gone away. They've not only kept those teams, those Triflex teams, but they picked up more Triflex teams as well.
Absolutely.
It's been a lot of fun.
I was even thinking myself, how it wasn't too long ago, 4 or 5 years ago, where Superflex was kind of a novelty. It was newer. It's been around, but it was kind of like becoming more mainstream. And now I feel like in the dynasty streets, Superflex has almost become the standard format. If you're not doing 2 quarterbacks, it's like, what are you doing, right? What are you playing? That's so archaic. So things have definitely evolved in fantasy for sure.
They have indeed. And evolving is what the Titans offense is going to do this year, at least according to Tennessee and their front office and their head coach and Brian Callahan there. So far, and I think you could kind of speak to this a little bit as we go Dynasty 201 a little tonight, Jay. Cam Ward has not been selected by the Titans as the first overall pick in the draft yet. There is a non-zero chance that he will not be selected at the first overall pick by the Titans. But knowing that he probably will, and knowing how dynasty players have misgivings about balancing, value of certain players when the 101 in the NFL draft is in play, is now the time to be getting Chiga Okonkwo in your FFPC tight end premium formats. Is now the time to be getting Calvin Ridley in your FFPC leagues, knowing that once Cam Ward is selected first overall, 3 weeks from this coming Thursday, the values of those players, the dynasty values, they're going to go up. How have you been handling those Titans players? And just speak to sort of your take on that philosophy, knowing that we kind of know it's going to be Ward, but until we see it with our eyes, there is a difference in trading for some of these players until then.
Yeah, the Titans are kind of just a forgotten about entity when it comes to the positional players, right? No one's really talking about Ridley or Okonkwo or anyone, and it's because there's that gap. But you're right. Let's fast forward another 23 days, and it's probably Ward. All of a sudden, we're thinking about who's catching passes now. Calvin Ridley, fits, I think, his skill set great, because what is Ward good at? He's not really a check down guy, right? He's not someone that's looking to get the easy play. He's someone that likes to kind of search downfield, hit the big play. That's one of his specialties. Ridley's made for that. And you look at last year, Will Levis was a bit of a mess, obviously. Mason Rudolph was just kind of taking the simple route. Someone like Ridley really suffered, but I think his skill set really matches what Ward can do. And just look at the depth chart too. We got Calvin Ridley, did a little research in this. Treylon Burks apparently is still number 2 on the depth chart. I don't know how that. I thought he was hurt. I thought he had just gone away.
But Jay, to be fair, for now, right? Because they could easily take Cam Ward at the 101, and then in the second round grab, Knowles or Higgins or Igbuka if he slides or whatever, and then all of a sudden Burks is back buried on the depth chart. Which again, we don't know if that's going to happen, but there's a non-zero chance, maybe more than a non-zero chance.
I would put a pretty good bet. Like I think they have the 35th overall pick, that they go with someone like if Luther Burden's still there, they might take a shot on him, or an Igbuka, which I think would both be really good picks for a rookie quarterback. But still, right? We don't know exactly what they're going to do. That's still a rookie. That's a development phase. They're going to have to be kind of, blended into the offense over time. Rookies usually take a few weeks to get their feet wet. So I think Ridley's a good value. And I know Chig Okonkwo, I guess I'm a bit of a truther. I looked at my teams like, geez, he's almost on all my rosters. Nobody wants him. He's tight end 30 right now, I think, in the big gorilla tournament, which is nothing. But what do quarterbacks like to do? Rookies, they like to lean on that easy, reliable target. That's what tight ends do. And Chig has some game. He's got I think a 75% catch rate. He just never has really been given the opportunity, but why not, right? He's someone that could surprise. Look at Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz was dead last year. And I know it's not to say that Ward's going to turn into Jaden Daniels 2.0, but right, Ertz had some pretty solid production down the stretch for the Commanders. So
it's kind of like whatever stereotype you want to subscribe to for rookie running, or for rookie quarterbacks. It helps you out with Ridley, right? You already mentioned it. Ward will extend plays, and he's looking for the big shot down the field. Ridley excels at that. Yeah. Ward is a rookie quarterback looking for that security blanket, looking for Mr. Reliable when he just needs positive yardage, or he just needs 4 or 5 yards to keep the chains moving. That's Chig Okonkwo. So no matter which way you slice it, you can tell yourself a story that Ridley and Okonkwo are buys right now in Dynasty Leagues, and for sure in the FFPC.
The cost is minimal. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. It's not
roster cuts are over. This is a chance to add for minimal or draft if they're available. Like Okonkwo is probably available in a few leagues. I would definitely throw a dart on him for sure.
What were roster cuts like for you this past weekend in FFPC? Did you feel like the knife in the kidney on any of these, Jay, where you're cutting players God, I really don't want to cut this guy, but I don't have a better choice?
I made a point to start early. So last month I've been kind of trickling through the league, sending offers, throwing feelers out there. Fortunately, I did most of my homework early on. I had one league. It must have been after midnight last night. It was getting close. And I had, I think it was Tajay Spears. I'm like, I really don't want to. And this was Superflex. I really don't want to cut Spears. I think he's worth a roster spot. So I was able to salvage him for a 4th last night, which I was happy about. But I know I didn't have any drops where I was like, this is a waste. This is a shame. Mm-hmm. But it was relatively quiet in my leagues last night. Most, I think, did their homework early, and I looked, it was 9 o'clock last night. Most teams are at 16. So yeah.
When you look at, and Jay, are you on X, Twitter at all?
Yeah, I'm perusing through Twitter. Yeah, usually every day. Yeah.
So what I've noticed over the last 72 hours, I should say that more than 72 hours, starting Friday afternoon, I noticed this. A lot of FFPC players on X complaining about all the bad trade offers that they're getting, right, for cut down weekend, where, hey, why don't you give me this draft pick and I'll give you these 2 players, or these 2 draft picks and I'll give you these 3 players that the person who would be trading the picks knows look, if I want these guys, I can just pick them up at some point during this because they're going to be cut. Do you feel like, knowing that happens every single year in the FFPC, if you start offering deals instead of, late March, start offering late February, are you able to get away from those players and turn those potential cuts into 3rd round picks or maybe 4th round picks? I don't know what your philosophy is on that. I'd love for you to share that with us.
I think you can get ahead of the curve, right? You got to look at other teams. And that's sometimes, as Dynasty managers, we can be lazy and just start, oh, I want this, without really looking at the other person's roster, right? Like, don't send me Keenan Allen when I got 6 wide receivers, including 3 studs that are top. Like, I don't need him, right? I'm not going to accept that. So you kind of have to do a little due diligence, look at the person. What do they need, right? I always look, if I have some extra fat, which roster needs depth, right? Who's got those extra picks that are sitting there? And I'll try to corral that, say send 3 fringe players, that should be rostered, and try to corral that into a 2nd or 3rd round pick, right? Or make some big moves. I've got quite a few 1st round picks. Like, I'll look at some teams, like I got Terry McLaurin. I don't need Terry McLaurin. Okay. Who wants Terry McLaurin? Somebody sends an offer, he's willing to trade a 1st. Okay, 109 in Superflex. I'll do that. Right. So I think you just have to put a little extra effort and really kind of match by kind of analyzing your opponent's teams. But the lazy, I'm just going to send a bunch of feelers out there. People kind of get turned off easy.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. It's you have to have, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this, like thoughtful targeting, right? Or maybe preemptive is the wrong term, but you have to put some intellect into your trade offers. I get some bad ones in private dynasty leagues. I play a lot in the KFFSC as well, and I wouldn't say I get bad offers there, but I feel like the offers I get in those leagues are really thoughtful. Not only I can easily see how I'm helping this person, but I can easily see how my team is being helped by this as well. So, like, anytime I don't have to automatically click reject, you know what I mean? Like, that's a good trade offer, or where I have to think about it. And I think that those are the ones I'm more likely to sign off on. Okay, let's go with Christian McCaffrey question. Everybody wants to talk about rookies right now. Let's talk about aging running backs, which, I mean, who doesn't want to talk about aging running backs? Whether you have him on a dynasty league or not, and I know a lot of this, Jay, will depend upon whether your team is in quote unquote win now mode, right? What's your policy on McCaffrey? Are you looking to acquire him? Are you looking to dump him? Are you agnostic, where you're just looking for, if somebody wants to give me something, I'll take it, but I'm not going to shop this guy? What's your policy on Christian McCaffrey right now? Again, whether you have him or whether you don't have him in your leagues.
Yeah, I think I do have him in 4 leagues, 4 to 15 or something like that. So for me, he's a hold. Like, I'm trying to compete in all those leagues. I'm not going to get fair market value at this stage. He's someone, what's everyone's lasting impression of him was that Buffalo game where he just went down early. That's the lasting impression. I want McCaffrey to get out on the field, be healthy, get us a 20+ point fantasy game. And then that's when you sell. So I think he's a hold. In terms of buying, I think there's an opportunity out there. If you're an RB needy team, like if you have a late 1st in a super flex, I'm thinking 110, 111, 112, right? And at that point, probably the top 4 running backs, Trevion Henderson, obviously Hampton, Gentry are gone. Judkins is probably gone too. That's where you might want to send a pick to get someone like McCaffrey. But yeah, I think he's a hold if you have him. And I think you kind of test the market. If you need a running back, why not? One thing I'm noticing is our understanding of running backs has completely changed. Just a few years ago, I remember I had Derrick Henry, and the current philosophy then was, okay, your running back was 26. Time to thinking about trading him because he's past the age apex. Well, guess what? If you had Derrick Henry the past few years, you're living fine, right? Like, it's been pretty good. Look at all these guys, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, Kamara, they're still going. McCaffrey's, I think he's turning 29. Like, I think he's someone that really values his training with his regimen in the off season. I think he's going to age gracefully. His knee is a concern. His health is a concern, but I think he's worth the gamble because he's a difference maker. Right? He's a pass catcher, right? He's someone that doesn't need even. We've been spoiled with the way he's been used in San Francisco, but he's someone, even if you give him limited touches with the pass catching ability, he's going to pay off in the long run.
He will turn 29 years old on June 7th this year. So this will be his age 29 season. And certainly McCaffrey, a bit of a unicorn when it comes to running backs. And maybe, the normal running back rules don't apply to him as far as age goes, like they didn't apply to Derrick Henry, I think is a perfect example that you brought up there. Let's shift and talk about the Jaguars situation at tight end. So they release Evan Engram, and obviously there's a lot of FFPC players who had Brenton Strange on their rosters. Very excited, one, because they knew that Strange had locked up a roster spot before cutdowns. And then number two, knowing that this guy was a former second-round pick that came from a college that had churned out some pretty good tight ends in Penn State, and that had shown out in the weeks that Evan Engram had missed. But knowing that we have a class here with Warren, with Loveland, with Fannin, with Mason Taylor, with Elijah Royal, like this is a fairly deep tight end class. And if I have Brenton Strange, I had in the back of my mind, Jay, like this could be a 1-year thing for Strange, even though he was a second-round pick. Because if the Jaguars go tight end on day 2 or even day 1, God forbid, man, that's just really going to kill Strange's value. Am I too worked up about it? Am I too worried about it? How do you feel about Strange's value right now, knowing what could happen 3 weeks from now at the NFL draft?
Yeah, you're talking to someone that has a lot of Brenton Strange. I picked him up and he played, I think, pretty solid. And then that one game, I think in the fantasy playoffs, we were all counting on him. He had a dud.
Yeah.
So he left a bad taste in some people's mouths. But you're right. He's second-round pick. Actually caught the ball pretty well in limited opportunity from, I guess he was with Mac Jones for most of the season when he got the opportunity. But I kind of see him as like kind of finding that loose change, that few dollar bills in your couch. You weren't counting on this. I don't think anyone was expecting Brenton Strange to be the guy at this stage. So it's kind of like free money. I think it's going to be worth testing the market to see what you can get. Like you probably could fetch something like an early third, or he's the kind of guy I view as like a sweetener. You're trying to work on that deal, right? Mm-hmm. Can you throw him in as that, hey, this team needs a tight end or you need a little depth? That's how I would view him. So I'm probably going to look to see if I can cash out in some of my shares pre-draft because, like you said, the depth is unbelievable. I don't think they're going to go. I'd be shocked if they took Tyler Warren at the 5th pick they got? The 105?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, they could. They need someone. I'd be surprised if they did that. But I mean, someone like Elijah Arroyo or Harold Fannin, right? Round 2, or someone who may fall to round 3. I could totally see them do that. And then you're left with Strange, and his value is going to be what? He's a cut come September because of that. So I'd be
that's what it'd be is if you see them investing even like a round 2 or round 3 pick, they have pick 36. In the second round, they have pick 70 in the third round. If they do go tight end with one of those picks, you think that Brenton Strange would be a cut for you in FFPC leagues?
It would be hard. It would be hard to keep him with all the rookies coming in. But that said, if he survives, we got it's Liam Cohen time, right? Like we should be excited. Look what he did with the Bucks. Everyone was kind of skeptical. They had a good run the year prior. Baker Mayfield does it again. And all he did was elevate Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin was suddenly relevant. He was wide receiver 2 before he got hurt. Remember Cade Otton had that amazing stretch where at one time we were talking about him for a good month and a half, like he was a top 3-5 guy in terms of tight ends. So I would love to see what he can do with Brenton Strange. And we know that Trevor Lawrence does like to lean on the tight end, just like he did with Evan Engram for, I guess, good 2 years, 2+ years.
Want to give a shout out to Mile High Luke, Botanical Extraction. I never know how to say his name. Do I say the full name here on the show? But I will say it tonight. Watching us on YouTube, he said he just made a trade in his FFP or one of his FFPC Superflex Dynasty Leagues. He traded Michael Penix. Actually, I'll just put this up on the board. I'm so used to having a producer, but tonight I'm producing. Mile High Luke just moved Michael Penix Jr., mid to late, what he thinks is going to be a mid to late 2026 pick. So obviously, Mile High Luke thinks very highly of his team. Mid to late 2026 first and a mid to late 2026 second for Drake May, a 2026 third and fourth. This is, again, FFPC Superflex. I'm going to be honest with you. I think I'd rather have the Penix side of this deal. Jay, how do you feel about it?
So, yeah, I guess it's hard to tell with that first where he said, I guess he's assuming, okay, it's a late first.
Yeah, late first and then a late second next year as well.
Yeah.
Which to me, okay, just how I'm looking at it before he answered, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Nope.
I think I might, I know maybe I'm just not a Drake May guy. I know there's a lot of people out there that love Drake May. But man, I look at Penix and what he could do in that offense and having Drake London there. I'm very excited about that. So I guess the fact that I'm pretty bullish on Penix, this is what has me thinking like I'd rather have the first round. I'd rather have Penix. I'd rather have the second round. And I would give up May and that third and the fourth to get that draft capital. But I'll let you weigh in on this. You play FFPC Superflex Leagues. How do you feel about this deal?
I don't own any Drake May. I do like Drake May. I find him fascinating. Yeah, the more I think about this, I mean, getting the first, I mean, late, who knows? Late could turn into mid, right? And this, you still get a second. I do think it's a fair value. I guess it depends where you view Penix and May, right? And they're polarizing. We really haven't. I mean, Penix, small sample size last year, obviously has some weapons, has promised. Drake May, he has the rushing element, and that's the intriguing part, right? Mm-hmm. Can he elevate his game to the next level with his legs? Obviously, getting a few weapons right now, Stephon Diggs would be the number one weapon there, so that's concerning. There's not a lot to like at this point, but yeah, I think it's close. If I had to choose, though, I would go May if I knew for sure 95% that it was a late first. I might go May.
I will say one of the things that I always underrate about May is his rushing ability, and he does have that significantly over Penix. So there is something to be said for that. So yeah, as far as it goes, Luke, I mean, listen, if I'm a May guy, I'm doing this deal for sure. I think I'm a Penix guy, so I'm probably taking the draft capital here, but it's very, very close. And it's one of these things, anytime somebody posts this in here, Jay, I'm always like, ask me tomorrow. I might have a complete opposite view on it because that's how close this is.
It is, yeah.
Let's talk about, speaking of Penix and the Falcons, let's talk about Drake London. Start of season last year, we thought that I thought Cousins to London was going to be electric. I thought it was going to be great. It had its moments, but it was never awesome. Then it was made moot because the Falcons decided to go with Michael Penix at the end of the season, and he will ostensibly be their starting quarterback going forward as they look for a new home with Cousins or for Cousins, or they might just stay with him and have him as their backup. I don't know, but it's going to be Penix throwing to London. Was this an upgrade? Was this a downgrade? Was this a stay the same for Drake London's dynasty value? And if it was an upgrade, how much more do you like London now with Penix as opposed to how much you liked him with Kirk Cousins tossing him the rock?
I'm going to give you an interesting answer. So I do think it's an upgrade. I do like him more, but the more I think about it, I do have some shares of London. I think I'm going to look to pivot because I don't know if his value is going to get any higher. So Big Gorilla right now, he's going 17th overall, wide receiver 9. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty hefty price.
That's high. Opinion. That's very high. Yes.
I feel like I maybe he can beat that a few notches, be a mid-second round pick, but the room for error there is so small. Like he has to deliver at that point. Even keep Drake cut wide receiver 9. I think it might be a good time to cash out if that's his price. Looking at the numbers last year, How many times do you think he scored over 20 points in fantasy in FFPC leagues?
Wasn't a lot. It was not a lot.
Twice. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And both times he exploded. I think week 5 against Tampa, it was 33 points and 13 targets. And week 18, which helps no one, he had a massive 41-point game against the Panthers.
One time during the fantasy season.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Now, granted, he did have some 17 and I think a couple 18 or 19, but he didn't really go off. And he had a ton of targets. I think it was 158 targets. So it wasn't like we can't say, oh, he didn't get the volume. You know, this Arthur Smith wasn't giving him the ball like a couple years ago. He had the opportunity, and still the results were like, if I'm paying that price at wide receiver 9, 17th overall, I want someone that I can rely on to get 20 points more often than not just because that's usually my barometer for like elite 20 points, 18, 20 points. So
I want to ask you about, because I know everybody's talking about rookies right now, Jay. And we will get to the rookies for anybody who is wondering, like, why the hell aren't they talking about the rookies? That's why I tuned into this. Let's talk about last year's rookies, because we saw a pretty awesome season from a lot of them, especially at the wide receiver position and pass catchers in general. I mean, obviously, you know, you had Brock Bowers, you had Brian Thomas Jr., who you mentioned earlier in the show. You had Malik Neighbors, Ladd McConkey was another one. I mean, there was plenty of them. Before we get into that, how do you feel about this? I turned down this deal today. You tell me who you'd rather have. Tyreek Hill in exchange for Ricky Pearsall and a second-round rookie pick. Which side would you rather have?
Is it the rookie pick this year?
It's the rookie pick this year. Second-round rookie pick this year.
Oh, I'd still go Tyreek.
I turned it down because apparently I have a man crush on Ricky Pearsall. Because I could have gotten Hill, but I ended up keeping. Here's the thing. I told, and I believe it was Bob Hogan, who I play in a lot of Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship Dynasty Leagues with, and I feel bad because he always sends me these good offers, and I'm always so close to doing them, and maybe I'm just the worst trading partner ever, which is, there's a non-zero chance of that. But I told him, like, look, man, I think I like Pearsall better. Even without the draft pick. Like, I look at Ayuk, who is going to have a slow start to this season. There's still a non-zero chance, and maybe it's more solidified now that he didn't get traded. But Pearsall could be the number one guy there. I don't, you know, when Jennings gets back from this ACL, he's going to have to work his way up to being what he was before the injury. And he's going to be behind the curve, right? Because Pearsall is going to have a full training camp. He's going to have this full season. And then when Ayuk is healthy in September, October, whatever, it's going to be him catching up. And they have Kittle there. I get that. And he's probably the number one pass catcher. But Juwan Jennings, to me, is still like a blocker. I know he showed out last year, but I don't trust that from a full season standpoint. And Pearsall was a guy that they soaked first-round draft capital into. And they've been clearing out all these players to try to sign Purdy. And if you're trying to sign Purdy, you're trying to give him a weapon that he can throw to. Pearsall, to me, is the safest weapon in this offense right now. Hill is an electric talent. He's unbelievable. But Rob Vieira told me this years ago. Rob Vieira, a longtime FFPC player, might have told me this on the show. Always try to acquire ascending assets. Tyreek Hill is no longer an ascending asset. Yeah, he's still a valuable one. And I guess what gives me pause too is looking how the Miami offense changed last year when they wanted to keep Tagovailoa upright. We saw less of an emphasis on getting Hill and Waddle the ball downfield and more of an emphasis on getting the ball out of Tagovailoa's hands early to Smith, Achane, and the like, right? So that gave me pause a little bit. And when it came down to it, and I was close to accepting this, Jay, to your point, but when it came down to it, when it's this close, I usually try to go with the youth instead of the age. And there is a significant, this is not like a 28-year-old for a 26-year-old. I mean, this is like a 30 or 31-year-old for like a 22 or a 23-year-old. So I ended up going with Pearsall, maybe to my own detriment, but that's my best explanation for it.
You're selling me on Pearsall the more I think about it.
And this is all assuming Pearsall's good. He may not be good. That's the other thing.
I mean, the poor guy, he got shot just during training camp or something like that. So I mean, he was behind the 8 ball. Had to get healthy, work his way in the field. The wide receiver corps was crowded, right? We had Debo, Ayuk, Jennings came out of nowhere to become relevant. Of course, Kittle had one of his better seasons. So he was buried. And now you fast forward to today, like you said, Ayuk is injured and he might be gone eventually.
And Samuel is gone.
Samuel is gone. Kittle, it's really basically just Kittle, and he's kind of the next guy in line in a sense. And he did flash at the end of the year. He showed some chemistry with Brock Purdy. So, you know what, the second, and I do like the second rounders this year. I think there's been some really good value. So and thinking about Tyreek, he is kind of a ticking time bomb. Like, he does kind of have character issues. You could see kind of going south. He was getting frustrated last year. It was a terrible season by his standards. He could turn it around. Absolutely. He's got the talent, but there is some risk there. I don't hate it, actually.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm right. I mean, this could blow up in my face in October when Hill is, catching his 8th touchdown of the year and Pearsall has missed time, or he's, had a season high 3 catches in one game. We'll see. I could be completely wrong on this. But that's the great thing about it. And that's why we love playing Dynasty Fantasy Football, because it's like the game within the game.
Exactly.
I can't say that EA Sports is probably going to come after me now, but I will say it's sort of like 2 different separate puzzles you got to solve at the same time. Getting back to my original question, all the big time rookies last year, do any of them suggest to you, based on what you saw last year, Jay, that they should be sell highs before the 2025 season starts?
You think someone like last year's RB corpse class was just awful, right? Like, part of it was everyone was healthy. Like, when was the last time wide or running backs were that healthy, especially the veterans? Very rarely. I can't remember a season. Usually we're playing, running back who relied on the waiver wire. So you would think someone like Bucky Irving could that. I think Bucky's legit. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's here to stay. He's kind of reminds me of Kyron Williams. We thought Kyron Williams, he's, that was a 1-year thing. Well, guess what? Kyron kind of came back, gave us an encore. I think Bucky, he's safe. The LSU guys, Neighbors, Brian Thomas, I think they're legit. Ladd McConkey, I think he's legit. So I was thinking, okay, well, some of the other guy, Marvin Harrison Jr., he kind of disappointed. So I wouldn't say he was a standout, right? We're kind of hoping he takes that next step. He probably will. My guy is a quarterback, Bo Nix. Quarterback 7 right now in the Big Gorilla. I don't know. I just he was amazing. Like, my expectations were minimal. I think a lot of people thought, okay, maybe he'll be solid, but he showed some rushing ability. He was the second half of the season. He became a savvy veteran out there, moving with very limited assets at the receiving position. He made Cortland Sutton relevant and had his best season possibly ever. So can he do it again? I don't know. I'm getting the CJ Stroud vibes from Bo Nix. And I just could see defenses making adjustment. He had a lot of multi-touchdown games down the stretch. I looked at his schedule. I think his schedule is more on the favorable side. He did a lot with nothing. Got to give him kudos. But at a quarterback 7 price tag, I'd be looking to sell high. I don't see him ever cracking a top 5. Even being a top 8. There's so many guys behind him. Caleb Williams is going to probably pass him. Drake May is coming. I'd be looking to get what you can right now.
He's quarterback 7 in redraft too, which means
exactly.
Value him higher in Dynasty. I'll say this too, and you brought up CJ Stroud. I'm not saying there's going to be a repeat of what happened with Stroud last year with Nix, but I will say this. How many people, and I know that, and people are watching this right now, like, well, this guy said Stroud was going to be a bust in 2024. Yeah, I understand there was a section of people out there that saw this coming. But think about what the Texans did in the offseason last year. They went out and they traded for Stephon Diggs. They had Tank Dell coming back. They had Nico Collins coming back. They went out and added Joe Mixon. Like, all these things that should have been a groundswell for a big-time CJ Stroud 2024, and it didn't happen. Now, injuries were a part of that. Obviously, Diggs tears his ACL. Dell has the bad injury towards the end of the season. Collins missed time with the soft tissue injury throughout the year as well. So that worked against Stroud. That's not to say that, okay, just because if Denver upgrades their backfield and Denver upgrades their pass catchers, who's to say those guys stay healthy all season? But by and large, they stayed healthy last year. And Nix was great. But just because things should take a step forward in Denver this year, does not mean they necessarily will. So I get your point with Knicks as far as dynasty.
The other thing too to factor in is their running game was absolutely atrocious last year. They had no run game. Like it was a revolving door of a bunch of disappointments. Audric Estime did nothing. Javonte Williams was just god awful.
Yeah.
So they were relying on the pass more. A lot of people think they could go after someone like a Mario Hampton and bring legitimate, RB1 that's going to, take the rock away, take some of those touches away. So that's another factor you can look into to say, for me, it's just when I hear quarterback 7 or even in top 10, to me, that's like, you know what? You got this guy late round 1, you're cashing out nice. Get what you can. And I think you take away the risk because I just don't see him maintaining this. Not to say he's going to fall on his face, but I don't see him being a top 10 guy next year. Like a year from now, I would be surprised. We're still saying Bo Nix top 10.
I think that's the point we need to drive home here, Jay, is like you and I both think that he can be successful and have a good 2025 season. However, when the market is valuing him as high as they are, that's probably a good time to start shopping him around and say, okay, look, I think this guy's going to be good, but you think he's going to be great. So why don't you give me the assets in exchange for how you value him? And
we talked about Penix in May. Okay, I'll trade him for Penix and give me something on top of that. Give me a second or Drake May. I'll take Drake May. Give me something on top. I'm happy. Right. That's the trade I would be looking to make. So you're still getting that youth, but you're looking at someone like who's going to be taking the next step ascending versus someone who we think is kind of peaked.
You said you like Drake May, right?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so now
I don't own him anywhere.
Right.
I'm intrigued. I see the possibility. So it's someone that I'm going to be looking to probably throw some feelers out.
I think my problem with Drake May was the fact that in the Dynasty Leagues last year, where I was drafting quarterbacks, I usually had Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels falling to me, and I like both those guys better than Drake May. So as a result, I was not going to double up at quarterback. Even in a Superflex league, I would not have the opportunity to draft 2 of those 3 guys, right? I could get basically 1, and I usually was picking Williams or Daniels over him. So I don't have a lot of Drake May. I think I have some Drake May, but not a ton. He looked good in flashes last year. Now he gets Mike Vrabel as his head coach. The Patriots have really fortified the defense, and then they went out and signed Stefon Diggs, who is going to be May's #1 target when he gets healthy. Diggs is no longer on the right side of 30, but he will fight almost no one for targets and opportunities in this offense. He is going to get all you can eat in that offense. How good of a landing spot is this New England position for Stefon Diggs and his dynasty value now, Jay?
I think it's probably as good as you could have asked for. And also, shout out to his agent. How the heck did a guy coming off in an ACL tear, age 32, get a 3-year, $63.5 million? Like, wow.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
It is. I had to do a double take. I'm like, is this right? Did I miss something here? Like, I know it's probably like a 1-year deal, but still, I think it's $20 million easily guaranteed. Like that's impressive.
It's 25 mil guaranteed, average annual salary of just over 21. He's making a base salary of 3 million, signing bonus of 12 million this year. There is a potential out, to your point, after this season, where it would be a $9.7 million dead cap hit, and maybe the Patriots would be fine with that. But they get a guy in a market where there is not just #1 receivers hanging out there. They basically get him, to your point, on a 1-year deal.
Yeah. So obviously you're giving him that amount of cash. You have to have a plan for him, especially a guy like Diggs is not the kind of guy you bring in to be a veteran presence. Oh, help. No. He needs the ball, right? If he does not get the ball, he's not happy. Now I'm just shocked because I struggle with seeing him being someone that's just going to, immediately immerse himself in the offense and take on it. Like, he's coming off an injury at that age. Like, it's going to be slow going. So you think you'd want someone more reliable for that amount of money. That being said, it's probably his best of a landing spot. Like, I was ready to drop Diggs in like Superflex leagues where I had him, as a wide receiver. I'm like, it's just not happening. Who's going to sign this guy? And all of a sudden this contract comes. So it gives him life in Dynasty. I think you hang on to him and you just kind of hope that he kind of is kind of Keenan Allen-esque, like Allen was with the Bears, and he had his moments. And if you're a team that's rebuilding, you cash out when he has those games. And if you're a veteran or a team that's in it to win it, then you just kind of, ride the wave and see what he can do.
I want to ask you about the rookie running back class. If I was to ask you to rate this year's rookie class at running back on a scale of the best being Barry Sanders in his prime, right?
Okay.
And then the worst being Clark Hinkle, who was probably the most or the least efficient running back the NFL has ever seen. What running back would you use to describe this year's running back class of either how good, mediocre, or how bad it is? How do you view it, Jay?
I'm excited about it. Like I want
so would it be a LaDainian Tomlinson?
I think that's a good one. Like,
okay.
Obviously Genty, I'm really excited about Genty. I'm right now I'm in the process of trying to trade a Bijan share to get Genty and maybe something.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me what that process is like. So you're trading Bijan and then you're getting Genty plus or 101 plus?
Initially was looking for the 201. Owner scoffed. I'm also a need a quarterback, so I'm looking to get someone with the this is a triflex. So okay. Daniel Jones is part of the equation, and I'm looking to get a couple thirds. Like Bijan has been somewhat disappointing being an owner of him, and he had a great year down the stretch. But I guess I was expecting a bit more big playability from him, and I think Genty has this extra juice. I think he's someone that could just take it to the house. He's just a unique raw blend. You see the highlights. You just see the potential. He's someone that is going to be a difference maker. Kind of like Saquon in his rookie year. Remember that year where he just you'd be watching football in the sun. There goes Saquon doing his thing 60-yarder. And he did that again this year. I think he kind of has that ability. So really excited about him. Trevion Henderson. I think his skill set really checks all the boxes in the modern NFL: pass catcher, big play, efficiency. He's someone I'm going to be looking to draft. Mario Hampton, it'll be interesting to see his landing spot. I think he's pegged to go as the second RB right now. Mm-hmm. And then Judkins, Kingshawn Judkins, we'll see where his landing spot is. He also intrigues me. So those are the top four. But for me, if you really want to cash out, it's going to be the depth. And it's hard to say which are these guys that are going to really benefit. Who's going to make round 2 draft capital? Who's going to be drafted round 3? Someone I like, for instance, Giddens, DJ Giddens. He's someone that is on my radar. But the draft is going to dictate and landing spot. That I think is going to be the key. But fast forward a year from now, I think a lot of these guys are going to be in great situations because you look at the top 15, 20 RBs. There's so many veterans out there. They're not going to last forever. Aaron Jones, Kamara, Henry. You could totally see a year from now. James Conner. Yeah, the script is going to flip. And I think this class is going to be looked at. There's going to be more than one Bucky Irving, put it that way, from this year's class. We might not know exactly who it is today, but there will be more than one. So I think those second, early third round picks, running backs, a lot of them are going to strike gold, but you might have to be a bit patient.
I think, and I've said this before, I don't think on this show, I said it on one of the other shows, I said watching the draft on Friday night, and I live just south of Lambeau Field, so I'll be at the actual draft festivities. But I'm telling you, man, Friday night from a dynasty perspective, it is going to be painful because backfields are going to get blown up. Running back value will get blown up. Najee Harris, his dynasty value. I mean, I don't know what the analogy is. I don't know what's appropriate to say, but it's having Najee Harris is the equivalent of walking through a 100-yard minefield on Friday. It's going to get blown up at some point. You just don't know when. And then all of a sudden the Chargers take somebody at, the end of the second round. It's like, okay, Harris is worth nothing now. We mentioned I don't know if the Vikings would be appropriate. And honestly, I don't know. Maybe not the Cardinals either. But the Browns, I think that's a Fugazi thing right now. If you hold any Browns running back, they're going to target somebody. I think Jaylen Warren is another guy. If you think you got something in him, I don't think you do, because I think Pittsburgh goes after a running back on Friday. It is going to be rough watching that draft on Friday for all your running back shares.
If you're heavy with the veterans come that Friday night, you're right. There's going to be some F-bombs being dropped.
Yes.
And if you're someone that's holding a lot of second round rookie picks, you're going to be loving it.
You're loving it. I mean, trade those veteran running backs for second round rookie picks now. Because
Najee Harris is a great example. If somehow I would take a third, here's my third, here's Najee Harris, give me your second. I would take that all day long.
Yes, exactly.
Because let me cash out while I can. DeAndre Swift, same thing. Because these guys, once the preseason hits, we're going to see these rookies playing. Mm-hmm. These veterans are going to fade, right? And the sell windows are going to be so far gone. I agree.
I'm shifting the focus to the rookie receivers here, Jay. I'm not saying you have to tell me Ted McMillan is your favorite wide receiver in this class or your number one receiver in this class, but just like the excitement factor of maybe it is McMillan, and that's fine. But the excitement factor of these rookie wideouts, is there somebody that really trips your trigger pre-draft right now as we are, 3 weeks away? Is it Burden? Is it Igbuka? Is it, some of the other guys I mentioned earlier, Noel or Higgins or, any of these other guys? Is there anybody that particularly gets you excited about drafting him in Dynasty, not knowing where his landing spot is at the moment?
Yeah, I think the ultimate Travis Hunter, right? What is he? This is our own Shohei Ohtani in football,
right?
I've heard people say, "Oh, I wouldn't touch him until round 2," and I hear some people saying like, "Oh, I don't care. I'm going to take him middle of round 1 because I think the talent is there." Who knows, right? And the crazy thing is, we're only going to have a week until after the draft to make these big decisions.
Yeah.
So just from a fan of Dynasty, it's going to be fascinating to see how this all congeals, because you got people in so many ends of the spectrum with Travis Hunter. Chances are he's probably a little bit of both, right? I think he plays mostly corner and he kind of gets eased into the offense. I don't think he'll be like an 80% snap share guy. I could see him being maybe playing 40-50% of the snaps. Going to be hard to be relevant with that, but could it morph into something else? If you're Travis Hunter, you want to be technically a wide receiver. That's where the money's at. That's where the fame and glory is. You want to catch touchdowns, or do you want to, get the odd 1 or 2 pick sixes a year? And even that's special. So it'll, even for him, how is he viewing that? What does he truly want, right? Because he's walking through the process of trying to, cater to what teams might expect of him. But what does he really want? So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. So for me, that's the kind of the big name. And then one of the other names is Alik Ayomanor, if I'm saying the right thing, from Stanford.
Yeah.
He's by Canadian, by the way, from Alberta. He kind of got a late start to football. I think he started in high school. He got injured his freshman year, had 2 nice back-to-back seasons in college playing for Stanford. Last season, I think he had over 1,000 yards. Kind of a big play guy, but just watching him on tape, he seems smooth. I could see potential there. So I'm going to be looking to see where he goes. I'm hoping he kind of gets some day 2 capital, and it's a good landing spot, but he seems very intriguing to me. He's someone that's going to be circled on my list of rookies to target on draft day.
In a vacuum, just in a vacuum, I'm not saying how good your team is or what spot it's in, whether it has to win now or whatever. If you are at the 203 in a Dynasty Superflex FFPC league and Travis Hunter is out there, is he your pick at 203?
At 203, I think. What the hell? Yeah.
Okay. 110. Would you make him your pick at 110?
Now it's kind of this. Yeah. I don't know if I could do that.
112.
112. I have a couple 111, 112s. I probably would pull the trigger. Okay. 110 might come down to team need. If I need wide receiver, sure. But if
well, and because I'm talking about Dynasty Superflex, you're gonna incorporate the quarterbacks, you got to incorporate a deep running back class, you got to incorporate all these other receivers that aren't going to be playing corner this year. So I think that's it. It all comes into that. I just wanted to gauge your
round two. You smash late round one. I think it comes down to team build, team need.
And I think too, like if you have a 111 or 112, it probably means you did very well, maybe even won your league the previous year. Why not take a chance on a unicorn type player at the 111? We see NFL Super Bowl champions do it all the time, right? Where they take a chance on a player. And if it doesn't work out, hey, you got the depth, you got the team to work with in case you miss on that. But if you hit, that could be huge. Okay, we have been doing this for a long time. Final question for you tonight, Jay. A player that you are trying to acquire on your FFPC Dynasty Leagues right now, and then a player that you're trying to pawn off onto somebody else before the NFL draft. Who would two of those players be? A player you're trying to get, a player you're trying to get rid of?
All right, the buy is going to be interesting because it's really a buy high. And it's two. I'll give you two names: Brock Bowers, Trey McBride. I know it's like what buy? Their price is so high.
Right.
I look at the age of these guys. Like Brock Bowers, was he 22? I play tight end premium. We're talking Travis Kelce like production in someone's 20s for both these guys. And the crazy thing was they didn't have a lot of like when I think tight ends, I usually think tight ends. You know they don't catch a lot of passes, but they get touchdowns. Bowers, 150 some targets, 5 touchdowns. McBride, I think he had 2, and he saved him towards the end of the season. So if these guys are getting touchdowns, my God, they're going to break fantasy with 150 targets. It's not going to be fair. So I'm looking to parlay. I'm taking my CD Lamb, which I already did. I was doing a cartwheels one night. I traded CD Lamb and then packaged them with Sam Darnold and Goddard, and I got Bowers in a late second. Oh my God. Yes. Because the drop off from those two is going to be so wide, right? Everyone else is going to be trying to play. Who am I going to start at tight end this week? 1 week it's Njoku. Oh, Komet's hot. You get rid of that. You put that guy and you sleep like a baby at night. I'm telling people because if they go nuclear this year, good luck. You're not getting them, right?
I always think like players like that, especially Bowers, and this is what I've heard from a lot of FFPC players. You cannot part with him and get equal value back. It's sort of like the equivalent of trading an NBA superstar in a deal. Like if you're trading a superstar, top 5, top 10, top 15 player in the NBA, it's not possible to get equal value back. So if you are able to pull off a trade for Brock Bowers right now, you probably got the better end of that deal no matter what you gave up, right? Unless you're literally giving up the farm. In which case, then you probably aren't getting the better end of it. But if it's good enough where it's close, and you get Bowers, you're getting the better end of that deal. And then once again, as long as that dude stays healthy, locked and loaded, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years, maybe. You don't have to worry about tight end.
Yeah, and it's in tight end premiums. It's such a massive to be like that. People forget when it comes to tight end premium, it's only an advantage if your tight end's getting targets. If he's the guy that's like Tucker Kraft, I love Tucker Kraft. I hope they give him more targets because he has ability, but he's a touchdown guy. You're not really reaping the rewards of the tight end premium there. But a guy like Bowers or to a lesser extent McBride, you definitely are. So I think, going for the home run swing, even if you have to lose a trade on paper, it's definitely worth it. And it's hard because everyone wants the overpay. I've seen some ridiculous offers. It's like you want half my team for this guy. And it's like, well, obviously that's not happening. But if you got to shop around, but do it now because I think after another season of elite production, it's going to be next to impossible to get someone like that.
For anybody who is operating now in the FFPC after roster cutdowns, everybody has trimmed their rosters. They have gotten rid of the fat. They have only kept the elite of the elite, the best players possible. This is a weird 3-week period, Jay, before the NFL draft. How do you accentuate that? How are you able to trade a player that, has made it through cutdown and is still on your team, but a player you're like, you know what? Somebody else might value this guy better than me. I should be moving him right now. Who's that player at the moment?
For me, and I don't have as much of him as I used to. I kind of got off this train, but if I'm someone that has James Cook, I know
Yeah.
there's talk of extension, but if you just dig in the numbers, here's someone whose profile is good pass catcher. You know, he can make some big flashy plays, right? But he's always been kind of a timeshare back, never been a workhorse. And I feel like he's someone that's, you know, classically punched above their weight. Before this year, his career rushing touchdowns was 2. Did that twice in a row, right? This past year, 16 touchdowns. What? No one's talking about this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is not happening. I would bet my house. I would bet everything I own. It's not happening again.
Yeah.
16 touchdowns. And he did that with less than a 50% snap share. And you got Josh Allen, who's a rushing quarterback. Like, I mean, that's almost impressive how that coincided. I just can't make sense of it. And then someone might say, well, he's a pass catcher. Yeah, he's a pretty good he had 36 targets, 32 catches. Okay, that's not that great. So if those touchdowns disappear, if even they go in half, that's huge. That's a huge loss to his fantasy value. Not to mention they could add someone, right? I mean, because Tyrone, what's his name? Ty Johnson. He was. How often do you see him there at the end of games and mixing in? So I'm like,
even Ray Davis too. I mean, Ray Davis.
And Ray Davis actually, to me, he's someone that could probably they could expand his role because he looked good in limited work. So I'd be looking to sell James Cook. I like him as a player. I think he's done great for us in terms of fantasy, but keep trade cut. I think I saw him. He's RB11. I'm off that train.
Yeah.
That price.
I think dynasty fantasy football is so much about winning at the margins, right? And you can have a guy lead you to a championship one year, but and you can't have the emotional attachment, right? You weren't spraying this guy with champagne in the locker room. This is a player that you probably will never meet, and you know there's no reason that you have this unnatural attachment to him on your roster. Sell him. If you think that's the right move for you. You mentioned it. The efficiency for James Cook in 2024 out of this world.
Yeah.
If you can find somebody who believes that he is going to be 90 to 95% of that in 2025, that is a player, a drafter, a team owner that you want to be in business with. Like, okay, let's make a deal. How can we get this to work? Because chances are the assets that you bring back in a James Cook trade, if he is offering up 90 to 95 cents on the dollar, you're going to be winning that deal for the 2025
Absolutely.
season.
And what's fascinating with Cook is a lot of times you would hear the name Cook, like, oh, get rid of this guy because he had an amazing season. He's not going to do. I'm not really hearing that. It's kind of like James Cook's good. He's getting a contract. Boom. Here's your window. There's not a lot of shade thrown at him for what he did. You know, great for what he did, but it's not happening again. It's so. You'd be foolish to not try to cash out or see what's out there in terms of value from.
And that's the other thing I want to make clear too. Like, you don't want to just sell to sell, but if you find the right trade partner, this is something that I have James Cook in a dynasty league, and I actually feel bad after this conversation. I have not been shopping around as much as I probably should, because I have the running back depth in that league to take the hit. So I'm going to, in fact, when I get done recording this, I probably will look at see if I can find a trade partner in that league. A guy who has had a lot of success in the FFPC over the course of his career at the dynasty level and quite frankly at all levels is Jay Yutronkie. 15 FFPC Dynasty League titles over the course of his career. Jay, I know we talked with you on the HSFF Hour last year. Glad we got to reconnect tonight. This was so much fun. I learned a lot. I know the viewers did as well. I want to wish you nothing but the best of luck in all of your leagues this year. Enjoy these next 3 weeks, which will be fun in the FFPC. And then, of course, NFL Draft Night, April 24th. NFL Draft Weekend, 24th, 25th, 26th. That's going to be fun to watch and maybe harrowing at certain times for some of our running back values on that we have on our dynasty rosters right now. But it's always interesting. It's always entertaining, much like you were tonight. Thank you so much for hopping aboard, man, and we will talk with you again soon.
Pleasure. Thank you so much.
You got it. That's Jay Yutronkie. Hopping aboard tonight, the 15-time FFPC Dynasty League champion. As I go off screen because I'm having issues with my computer. I apologize for that. As we wrap up the April edition of the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown. So much fun to have you aboard tonight. Remember to check out the FFPC Never Too Early Best Ball Tournaments. The next time this show goes live, we will not have those best ball tournaments available anymore. They close on April 24th, and we will not go live again, I believe, until May 6th on this show. So check those out. Dynasty Orphan teams over at myffpc.com as well. If you want to pick up a Dynasty Orphan like Jay has been doing, like so many people have been doing, we have posted the final 300 Dynasty Orphan teams for the 2025 season. Cash in on those. A lot of great deals out there. So make sure you are adding those into your portfolio. And then, of course, the Big Gorilla, which we referenced several times tonight as well. $1 million grand prize, $50 discount on every third team. Right now, the early Rampage and the 7 Bananas promo going on. Take advantage of that over at myffpc.com. Coming up later this week, we will be speaking with Matt Donnelly from Rotoballer and Fantasy Points on the Better Sports Network's High Stakes Fantasy Football Show at 7 o'clock this Thursday. 2 full hours of Dynasty talk from 7 until 9. That's on the Better Sports Network socials as well as the FFPC socials as well. We will also have a show this Friday night with multi-time FFPC Dynasty League champion Kyle Pollack, who will be joining us, Farrell Elliott and myself, at 10 p.m. Eastern time this Friday. So plenty of FFPC shows to whet your appetite as we are building up the final 3 weeks before the NFL draft, a monumental one when it comes to running backs as far as your FFPC Dynasty Leagues go. For Jay Yutronkie, I'm Eric Balkman. This has been the High Stakes Lowdown, presented to you by RotoViz and the FFPC. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified each and every time we go live. We'll see you in May, and we'll see you on Thursday night on the Better Sports Network. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk with you again real soon.
Thank you for listening to the High Stakes Lowdown, a RotoViz podcast brought to you by the Fantasy Football Players Championship. And thanks to Grapes for our theme music. Please review the podcast on iTunes under the RotoViz radio feed. It helps us find new listeners. Contact us via email, rotovizradio@gmail.com. We'd love to hear what you think, and follow us on Twitter at RotoVizRadio. And remember, you can always support the show by subscribing to RotoViz at a 10% discount through the NFL podcast homepage, rotoviz.com/podcast.